That's all the basic commands I've covered. Let's go into some other commands which will be a lot helpful, very helpful for you in pen testing and ethical hacking. We've already covered echo to print things on the screen. Now I've just shown you grep. What grep does, it actually searches a file and it'll search for a specific statement or string, should I say, in that file and display it on the screen. Obviously you usually use it with the pipe command to feed it the file. So again, we'll do the Yersinia example, but I could do anything. You can even use commands with grep. So for example, I could list a directory and grep any directory with the word pen in it, for example, even though there isn't none, but say there were a few, it would then only list directories with pen in it. So you can use grep for anything, but it's easier to show the example using a text file such as that log. So I don't think there's anything with the word pen in this log, so it'll probably output nothing here, but let's see. No, there's none. Now we know there's the word pcap in that log on at least one line. I'm pretty sure it's on a lot of lines. Let's have a look. Oops, my bad, I spelled Yersinia wrong. There you go. Like I said, there were a lot of lines, but just to show the power of the pipe command, I could then pipe the results of the next command to the more command like I showed you earlier, to show it page by page the results. Okay, let's have a look at that command again. So the first command is listing all the contents of Yersinia. Then I'm piping the contents of Yersinia to grep pcap, which grep basically searches for this string in the file it's fed, which is the output of Yersinia in this case. So it's all the lines with pcap. It'll show all them, and then it'll feed the output of that to the more command, which, as you remember, will show the results page by page or line by line, whichever we chose. And I could carry on piping it if there were more commands I wanted to feed the outputs into. That's what that does. Okay, I'm sure you can definitely begin to see the power of the pipe command there. Let me clear my screen. Okay, another useful command to know is locate. If you're not sure where a file is and you need to access this file for some reason and you're not sure exactly where it is, you can use locate to find it. I chose ls there, and unfortunately I'll search for every file with ls, starting with ls or with ls in the title. So that was perhaps not a good example to use, as there's quite a few. But it'll show exactly where in the file system those are. That's locate. It's basically a search. You can use it for commands, files, anything really. Okay. The next thing that I'm sure you're aware of is apt. This is our main package manager we have on Linux. There are a few actually which you may not be aware of, and I'm sure you've done an apt install of some type of program before now. I don't know, actually I don't want to install anything, but say I want to install a program called something, I'd put apt install and something. You can remove already installed files with a simple remove and the file name. You can uninstall a file, which means remove it as well as the dependencies which are installed with it by using purge, single G, and the file name. So if you installed something with apt install and it installed it as well as other dependencies it needed, this will get rid of all of them for you safely. purge. Now you can actually search the apt package manager to see if it has certain file types with the command I briefly showed you earlier: apt tac cache and search, and any string. So we're looking if there were any installers. I don't know. There's a lot with gem. So with war, there's more than I expected, but still. It'll show me all the different things I can install off using apt install with war. Now there's not only war in the actual title but also in the description. So for example, say I want to search for RPGs that I can install using apt. This will show me all those. These are all obviously free things I can install using apt install. That's a good way of searching apt. Apt, tac cache, search, and whatever you want to search for, the string you want to search for. This can be useful if you're trying to install something that's giving you errors, for example, and you can actually search for, say you're trying to install something and it says you cannot install this because the dependency libc11 is not found. You could use apt tac cache search libc11 and search for what file is near. See any that it might be Python 3 tac libc11, and then you can install that one and reinstall the program that you had an error with. That's another use for it. Okay. Another command that's useful, let me clear my screen, is tail. Tail is another program that will show you the text of a file, but it'll actually show you the last 10 lines of any file. So if I do my Yersinia.log again, it shows me the last 10 lines. You can actually use, I think it's tac n and any number to show just 5 lines, for example. There you go. So it doesn't, 10 is the default if you just use tail, and then whatever file you want to search the text of shows the last 10 lines. But if you only want to see the last 5, for example, you use tac n for the number of lines, and whatever file you want to see the last lines of. Okay. Now sometimes you'll have very big files, especially when you begin doing things like password cracking. You'll have very large word lists, as we call them, which is basically dictionaries of words to use for password cracking. When you got that, sometimes you may want to split them into smaller file size, smaller chunks, and to do that you use the split command. Now there's different ways you can do it. You can split it by size by using tac b, which stands for bytes. You can actually specify a size, say 10 M for 10 meg, and whatever file I wanted to split. For example, that had now split my big file.txt, whatever size that was, into 10 meg chunks. If you didn't want to split it by size, but say you wanted to split it by how many lines were in each file, or how many words, then you can use tac L and a number, say 2000. Now that would split my big file.txt into smaller files, each with 2000 individual lines. Okay, so you can split it by size or by line count. There are other options, but those are the main ones you'll need: lines or file size. Just another note on whilst we're on split, you can also use tac D. As a default, it'll split the files in the format big file A, big file B, big file AA, big file BB, etc. which can be a bit odd to look at sometimes. Let's leave that there. So it's always handy to put tac D. Now what that does, it splits the file and uses digits as the suffix. So it split it into big file 01, big file 02, big file 03, etc. So tac D is a very useful command to use with split. Makes them a lot easier to read. So I'd have a lot of smaller, in this example here, split tac L for lines 2000, tac D for numeric and big file.txt. I would basically split big file into smaller files, split into 2000 different lines each, called big file 01, big file 02, big file 03, etc, etc, till there wasn't no lines left. Each one contained 2000 lines. So that's split. Very useful for things like word lists. Whilst we're on word lists and commands associated with those, another useful command you can use is sort. Now sort tac U sorts a list, and it actually takes out all lines that are duplicates. So say I had a word list and there was a couple of times the word password was in this word list. It would take all those passwords out and just leave it so there was only one line with the word password. So it would take out all duplicates. It's a good thing to run on any word list, just to get rid of any duplicates, and then you could split it. Remember, if you have a very big word list, say a gig or something, then this can take quite a while, a few minutes or so. There is a lot of other uses for sort, mainly to do with word lists, but it is useful in bash scripting as well. If you have a look at the man page for sort, and let's just pipe that into the more commands like we were showing earlier, so we can have a look at it line by line or page by page. You'll see there are a lot of other options you can use with sort, and this will be mainly used for text files, but it can be used for all sorts of things. Okay, so that's sort. The main use you're going to have for it is taking out duplicates, which is sort tac U and your file name. That'll take out any duplicate lines. I think tac U means uniform. Put it in a uniform order, no duplicates. Okay. Another thing I want to mention is something I should have mentioned earlier really, but I mentioned it now in the more advanced commands, because there's a bit more to it than at first you suspect, which is ls for list. As you know, this will list the contents of the directory you're in. So for example, let's go up a directory. So I want to go up 2 directories, which I can't. I'll do this, but go up a directory. List this. This is the root of my hard drive. Now, with list, if I wanted to see in the actual contents in a bit more detail, I could use list tac L for long. That shows me more of a long format, which shows me a few more details, such as the permissions it has. If it starts with a D, it means it's a directory. If it doesn't, it's a file. Shows me the different permissions. I'll go into what these mean in a while. What group they belong to, when it was made, the file size, and the name. That's tac L for long. Basically shows more details. You can also use tac A to show any hidden files. Now, hidden files in Linux, they're made by simply putting a dot or a full stop before the name. And that's how you hide the file from the normal file system view. So if I go back up to, in fact this is a good example. It shows an hidden file here. Now if I run normal ls and compare them, you'll notice this .auto label isn't shown because it's a hidden file. You can make any, say I can make this, for example, make directory dot hide, and if I put ls for list, you wouldn't actually see the hide directory. But if I put ls tac a to show all, you then see my hide directory I've just made, which is hidden. Okay, let me remove that. Okay. Now with ls, you can obviously, like any other command, combine them. So I want to show all files and in long format, i.e. all the details. I could do that. There are other things you can do with the straight to ls or list command, but those are most useful, A and L, all and long. Now other uses of ls, which you may not know, you can also list things like your USB devices, ls USB. Shows all my USB devices, which includes any hubs. You can also view your internal devices with LSPCI. There's quite a lot there, which includes any chipsets, obviously, not just PCI cards and such. So say for example I wanted to search for my SATA controller, I could LSPCI and then pipe it to grep and search for the word SATA. Oh, remember, Linux is case sensitive, so that actually didn't show anything. There you go. Shows my SATA controller. So as you can see, the pipe command is coming in useful in many different circumstances. But that's LSPCI, LSUSB, LSPCI. There's also a command, LSOF, tac I for information. Now this shows all your network processes which are currently running, and some details of them, whether they're using IPv4 or IPv6, what service they're from, their server, their process ID, etc. Who ran them, localhost being the user currently on. Okay, you can actually see what user you are. So who am I? Obviously you're going to know what user you currently are, unless you come to a machine that's not yours, say in a school or college environment, or say you're pen testing or ethically hacking and you've actually remotely accessed another machine and you want to see what user you're logged in as. You can type who am I and it'll show you. I'm currently using the root, but if I was user pensec, for example, who am I would show pensec. I'm sure you're aware of that one already, but just in case. You can also type ID. It'll show you what groups you belong to. Remember, these can be run remotely as well. Okay. Now, that's LS. As I said, there's a lot more to LS than just the internal device, USB devices, your network connections, and listing your directories in different ways. But if you press LS and double tap, it'll show you all the different things you can list. And if you want more detail, simply type man and whichever command you want details on. So it shows you the manual. Okay. Remember, tab will show you all the different, will fill in a command, show all the different commands that you can get from the characters you already typed. A single tab will fill in any file or folder names that are in the current directory, like we did with Yersinia when we just typed YE and pressed tab for it to auto complete it. So that's tab, another very useful thing to remember. Okay. Now another useful thing, let me clear my screen. If you want to not just see the processes running for your network connections, if you want to see all processes that are running, you can run ps aux ps aux. It's odd, it doesn't actually seem to be installed in Calais. Very odd. Okay. Oh, right, okay. On most Linux it's ps aux. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my bad. It's ps for the processes that I myself, the user, has started. ps space aux, I didn't realise there wasn't a space, to show all the processes running. Those include those that were run on system startup. Obviously I could pipe that into a grep command to search for specific processes. They show you who ran them or when they were started, some details on them, how much memory they're taking, as well as the process ID number. Now you can kill any process by simply typing kill and the process ID number. So I could kill that, for example, even though it is actually killed already. It will die as soon as it's finished, but as I said, it's already killed. So I wanted to kill this terminal. So this bash terminal is running process 2544. So kill 2544. Okay, that won't kill this terminal. It's actually going to kill the bash command that I'm running at the moment and automatically restart it. So that won't seem like it's doing anything, but it actually is. But anyway, that's how you kill different processes. You'll find a need for that later when you get much more experience with Linux and pen testing in general. That's how you kill processes. Let me clear my screen. Okay, now I should have mentioned this one earlier really. PWS stands for Present Working Directory. Now you may think there's no use to it, but what it does, it tells you what folder you're currently in. You probably think, what's the use of that, because I already know what folder I'm in. For example, I'm in the root of my hard drive, so I was in my root. Clear my screen, and then run Present Working Directory, pwd. Shows me I'm in root. The main use for this is when you remotely access another machine. You can see what directory it's put you in, or a web server, for example, or perhaps you're on a school or college computer or network of some type and you want to know what directory it's put you in, even though it may not be shown. You can type pwd for it to show you. Okay. Now, I'm just going to quickly mention some quick commands here. You can also type free to show you your memory usage. It shows me what my memory is doing in some details, and also what my swap file's doing. Okay. While we're on that subject, you can also type df to show you some file system, what your file system details are currently doing. This type of thing will become much clearer. These are basically what all devices that are file systems, where they currently are and what they're doing. This may seem like a lot of jargon at the moment, but in time all this will become quite readable. Okay. That's df for your file system details. Okay, you can also type mount just to see all mounted file systems and media. That's including environmental type variable ones and any details, whether they're readable, writable, executable, what group owns them, the size that's allocated to it, etc. What mode they're in. I will go through the modes in a moment after I've done some commands. The modes are really easy to understand, I will go through that. As I said, this may actually seem like jargon at the moment, but in time it will become more clear what it is. So that's meant to show you what file systems and devices that are currently on your system, what they're doing and some details on them. So remember, when I say devices, that's all devices, not just hard drives and such. Okay. You can also type root just to see your routing tables. Also shows you the gateway that's being used and such. If you type root tac n, that'll be in a much more easy readable format, easier to understand. So it shows my gateway, which is my router, what IP ranges I'm on, my network mask, flags associated with each, etc. What device is using it currently. So that's root tac n for my routing tables. Let me clear my screen. That's covered some commands that will show you details of your system. Another one, you can type uname space tac a to show you your kernel version. So it shows your Linux kernel version and what flavour of Linux it's based on, etc. So I know that I'm running Kali, it's running 4.15.0 kernel. It's based on Debian. The kernel of this version was released on this date, and it's 64-bit. And it's a new Linux distro. Okay. That's details on your system. Processes, root, etc. Your memory usage. You can also type uptime, show how long the operating system's actually been on at the moment. You can type date, show the time and date. Again, some of these may seem a bit pointless because it'll show you actually on your desktop, but sometimes when you're accessing a remote system, for example, you won't actually have the desktop, or you may not have the desktop, depending on how you're accessing it. So these commands will come into their own then. Okay, I'll tell you to get different details on your system. Let me clear my screen.